Now we're going to have a look through the newspapers. Alison Sargent's with me here on set. We're going to start, in fact, in France. This national tribute today to Arnaud Beltrame. Of course, it's all over the newspapers, isn't it, Alison? It is, Stuart. That name, Arnaud Beltrame, becoming quite well known by now. He is, of course, that French gendarme who sacrificed his life to save a hostage in the Trèbes attack. Left-wing paper Libération says today's ceremony will be a moment of communion républicaine, national communion, basically. The paper says by sacrificing himself to save a hostage, well, Beltrame also gave France a heroic figure to rally around. Libération says today's ceremony in Paris will bring together France's right and France's left, those who believe in God and those who don't. The paper says, some might be put off by some of the patriotic symbolism we see in the ceremony, all of the flags and the hymns. But they say, we really need to see past that. We want to believe that this is one hero who is, and they use a French expression here, the tree that hides the forest. Basically, that Arnaud Beltrame, well, he's the one hero that we're seeing, but behind him there are many other heroes just like him. Basically, the daily heroism of the French people. Yeah, the heroism of the French people likely to be something that the French President Emmanuel Macron really emphasises when he makes that speech later, isn't it? Right-wing paper Le Figaro says that Macron is likely to call on France really to unite against the threat of terrorism. And the paper says Macron is really counting on this unity in order to win the fight against terrorism. A fight that Macron has characterized as a long-term cultural combat, Le Figaro reminds us. For the French president, really, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. Now, the papers are also looking at another homage taking place in France today. This is to honour Mireille Knoll. She's the Holocaust survivor murdered in Paris last week. This is a story that the international press is taking a particular interest in. You can read, for example, in the New York Times today, she survived the Holocaust to die in a 2018 hate crime. The fact that she was a Holocaust survivor is really the detail that people are most marked by. The New York Times cites a representative from the French Council of Jewish Institutions who said, in the end, her destiny followed her because she was ultimately killed by anti-Semitism. The Washington Post, meanwhile, says Mireille Knoll's murder has revived fears of anti-Semitism in France. They connect her murder to the murder of another Jewish woman that actually took place in April of last year. You might remember this woman's name was Sarah Halimi. She was beaten in her apartment and thrown out of a window. Police suspect that a Muslim neighbor was responsible. And the two women, Halimi and Knoll, lived in the same arrondissement in Paris. This is the 11th arrondissement. And the Washington Post points out that it's an arrondissement that's usually it's been mostly an immigrant population, but in recent years has really been gentrifying very quickly. It's a very somber article overall in the Washington Post. The paper says Mireille Knoll's death has raised anxieties over a troubling trend that has no clear solution. No solution, perhaps. There is going to be a response, though. Right, and today's gathering to honor Mireille Knoll is part of that response, and it's a chance to come together against anti-Semitism. And it's important that people show up, and not only those from France's Jewish community. That's the message from journalist Anne Sinclair, the founder of HuffPost France. She's penned a short but very powerful piece here, writing that the murder of Jews does not only concern Jews. It's not the one you see up there, obviously, but this other article that I'm talking about is also in the Huffington Post, and she says, yesterday we were Charlie, but let's be Mireille Knoll today. OK, we'll talk about that one now then, shall we? A quick word about one of our other top stories. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un taking to China. That's right, it's a perfect transition there. It's his first trip as leader. He met there with Chinese President Xi Jinping. We're actually going to check out the Korean press first, though. The green train that Kim Jong-un traveled on is on all of the front pages in Korea today and also in many places around the world. And the paper is very optimistic. They say the meeting bodes well for upcoming summits between the North and the South Korean leaders and the North Korean leader with Donald Trump, so the two summits that are upcoming. The U.S., though, isn't so sure that it's possibly a good sign. You can see in this cartoon from the Korean paper, the Jong-un Daily, you can see that eagle there, who's a symbol of the U.S., is watching this rapprochement between China and North Korea and is looking, I think, a little bit worried. In any case, you can tell he's watching this meeting very, very closely. OK, got the right one in the end. Thank you very much, Alison. Alison Sargent with the newspapers here on France 24. She'll be back in a couple of hours' time.